Hi folks, welcome to part 2 of my apple cider vinegar making days, weeks, ongoing series, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, here are the original apples from part 1. My intent is to juice these. I have a few more off camera. So I got my handy dandy electric juicer here. We're just going to grind these up. And then the juice I get from that, I'm going to divide in two. I've got these two 1 gallon basically fermenters. I use these in beer brewing to make small batches. So I'll take half the juice, put it in one, half the juice and put it in another. This is an anaerobic process. This is the more scientific approach to making apple cider vinegar that I talked about in the first part. Now in one of these, you're probably asking why I decided to break it into two. Probably this one. I will use beer yeast. Actually, this is champagne yeast that I purchased. This is going to help me really make it a rich environment. Remember, the goal here is we're making apple cider, fermented apple cider. So this is an alcoholic product. So I'm hoping for a really good concentrate by using this. In the other one, I'm just going to use whatever was on these apple skins when I put them through the processor. And however nature takes its course in this one will be how it goes. Remember, it's still anaerobic, meaning we're not allowing oxygen. Carbon dioxide will escape through this. And then we'll see what happens. My feeling is this will probably go a lot quicker with the controlled added yeast. This one will probably go a lot slower. So let's get started. All right, let's get started. I got my juicer, I've got my apples. You know, if you're gonna do this, you can leave the stems on if you want. Since you're gonna use the juicer, all the parts are gonna go over there anyway, so it does make slicing apples a little bit easier, since all I gotta do is basically just kind of roughly chop these up. Just small enough so they'll fit into the slot of my juicer. So we'll just turn this on and then we'll just drop them in. This is always fun. Now if you don't have a juicer, there's an alternative to this too. You can use pure apple juice that doesn't have any preservatives added to it instead of going through all this trouble. But you know, I've had this juicer. This is one of those things that I bought a long time ago that I said I would use more. And it just sat around for a while to the point where I actually had to dust it off before using it. Anyway, so this will take a while, but after I'm done with this, we will have a lot of apple juice to play with here. Get that in there. And of course, it's all coming out right there. And then I'll do what I said before, split it into two and add the yeast. Well, I squeezed out, juiced about 12 apples using my juicer, and I'm transferring the contents of that into my large beaker here. I've got about 3 cups of apple juice here, you know, kind of hard to count with the foam on here too. So now my intention is to split this into two. And like I said earlier, I've got these fermenters that I use in beer brewing. So I'm going to pour about half into here. Let's see, that's maybe about right. Now this container is arguably a little bit larger than I need, but it'll be fine. Just put a little bit more in there. And then we'll put the other half in the other container. And by the way, earlier I was saying, you know, if you don't have a juicer, you can go, and you got to be careful to read the label, but this is pure apple juice right here with no preservatives, organic apple juice. You can certainly use this instead of going through all this trouble. And I'm even thinking about, you know, supplementing what I have here to make this go a little farther. I don't think I'm going to do that this time around, but I might in the future. Anyway, so if you don't have a juicer, there's an alternative to doing this as well. So my next step is to add the yeast. So here's my packet of yeast. I'll just cut it open here. I'm not going to use the whole packet. This, when I buy at a brewing supply house, is made to make 5 gallons of beer. This is not even a gallon of apple juice here, so we're not going to need a whole lot. We're just going to boost the process here a little bit. I mean, I don't even know how much that was. Maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's about it on that. And then I'll put the cap on it here. This isn't the cap I'll use, but this is just the cap I'll temporarily use to shake it up a little bit. So when you first do this, you want there to be a good mix of yeast in here. But from this point forward, you really don't want to introduce oxygen into this juice at all. Believe me, the yeast like it best. Now, the next step on this would be to put a cap on this and let it sit. All right, here is the cap that I put on here. This is basically a one-way vent. So when carbon dioxide starts being produced in here, it'll vent through here. By putting fluid in here, a sanitizing fluid or even like gin, it'll just make sure it's a one-way process. When the CO2 bubbles out, nothing else comes back in. So basically, we're just going to wait and see what happens with this one. Okay, so now on this one, I'm just going to add the rest of the juiced apples. And I'm not going to add anything else to this guy. I'm just going to kind of let whatever was sitting on the outside of these apples do their thing. Same process. I'm not going to add any yeast, and I'll put a cap on here. I'll just go get the other bung for this a little bit later. But basically these two controls are going to go. This one I expect to go slower. The other one I expect to go a little bit faster. On the next series that I do on this, I'm going to take the apples, cut them up into cubes, stick them in this once I clean it out, and we're just going to let both processes go on at the same time and see what happens. See you on the next video.